Hello folks! Well, thus far on our Frontier Americana tour, we have done some amazing things here in the West. We have touched places that showcase the great beauty of the West and its nature. We have seen places that epitomize the spirit of the Wild West with the cowboys, and even touching a bit on the native indigenous history that's all throughout the West. Today we are in a tiny town nestled in between these huge mountains. We've gone from the hot, sweltering deserts of the Southwest to the Rocky Mountains. Take a look at this. Now, being from the east, we have the Appalachian Mountains, and we've done a whole tour on that, but I don't think we've seen mountains so grand, so large, so tall, so rocky as the Rocky Mountains. The weather here is very unpredictable. Colorado as a whole, the weather, very, very diverse. Let's just say that. Just a couple hours ago, raining, pouring like crazy. An hour before that, it was pretty sunny, just like it was here. And now, as I speak, it is once again sunny. Strange what the mountain country can do. So we're back in Colorado, the Centennial State, full of wonder, but we're not in southwestern Colorado. We are in the Front Range, and this is a region of Colorado characterized by, well, the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains. This was the first part of the great mountain chain known as the Rockies that the first pioneers who settled here discovered. For a long time it was just high plains traveling westbound, and then they found these impressive, towering mountains that blocked the way. And so these westward travelers had to find a way to get through this monster of a mountain chain. And so they found these passes a little bit west of Denver, maybe I don't know how many miles, but you know, a good hour's drive west of Denver, you will approach this small little town. And this small little town did not play such a small role. It played a very large role in Colorado history. Welcome to the quaint old little town of Georgetown, Colorado. Hey, look at that Georgetown clock. We've been in so many parks outside of the cities and towns that we've yet to do that in a long time. Anyway, you can see from this downtown layout, it's very old, very historic, and it dates back over 150 years. You can tell that the architecture here has a certain quality, a certain style that you may only find in these small western towns. See, it's just like the rudimentary, essential, Wild West style of building things. So why at 8,500 feet above sea level, in the middle of seemingly nowhere, was this town built? Well, we're gonna have to take a look at the history of the West as a whole. Here in the West, there's a lot of resources that you can find underground through mining. You all have heard of the California gold rush, so I assume. It was a big deal. Everybody came west to test their luck, to see if they could find any gold and get rich off of the gold that they found. But it was also here in the state of Colorado that large deposits of gold were also found. The people in California who were trying to strike it rich with the gold, they were called 49ers. But in Colorado, they were called the 59ers. And Georgetown was one of those places where people settled for the Colorado Gold Rush. My oh my, are these Rocky Mountains magnificent? Towering above the little town we have. It's an important, essential backdrop to this area. There is no Georgetown, there is no Colorado without the Rocky Mountains. So, a great scenery all around. If nothing else, visit Georgetown, visit Colorado for these breathtaking views of these towering mountains. So this town, Georgetown, was originally set up to house the booming industry of the gold rush in Colorado, formerly known as the Pikes Peak Gold Rush. There wasn't much population here, just enough to sustain whatever industry the gold mines were giving to this area. But then, later on, a few years down the line, silver started to appear in these mines. And more people realized it was probably a lucrative idea to capitalize on not just the gold, because that was sort of falling out of appeal and favor. Why not capitalize on the silver that is in these mountains? And let me tell you all, there was lots of silver to be found here in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. So, Georgetown eventually boomed. It was one of those boom towns that exploded in population because of the booming silver industry. Georgetown went from a sleepy little outpost camp, a couple hundred people maybe, to a thriving city of over 10,000 population. More people flocking to this Georgetown meant more demand for infrastructure, for businesses. So buildings and structures were set up like these. Look at that, 1874. That was the public school. Now it's a heritage center. And of course, churches. The first Presbyterian church, 1874. Looks like it was the same year as that. But now you see, in the late 1800s, because of the silver mining industry that was happening and giving Colorado immense wealth, Georgetown became a very important silver rush, if you want to call it that, city. Georgetown became so important that petitions were set up in the late 19th century to see if Georgetown could become the new capital of a new Colorado. Now here in the Rocky Mountains, transportation's hard to come by. Do you think there would be footpath trails all over scattered about these mountains? Probably not, especially ones that are of that size. So what do? How do you transport your resources across great distances in such harsh terrain? Well, that's what the railroad did to help this area out tremendously. Railroads were set up all along the west to transport not only resources but people, one of which transported raw materials like the silver that was found here from here in Georgetown all the way to Denver. And it proved a vital lifeline for this area in Colorado. Without it, it is guaranteed Georgetown would not exist as the town it is and the history it held that we know of today. So, how do we commemorate this achievement? Well, today, that very railroad that went through Denver up into Georgetown still exists. It's a narrow gauge railroad, only about 3 feet wide. That's what the tracks were. But today, that railroad is used for tourism. I wonder what it would be like to ride on this railroad. Well, we don't have to imagine. We did that earlier today. So enjoy the little montage I've created of the Georgetown Loop Railroad. was just impressive. Not only can you see a beautiful picture of the countryside, the mountains, the little streams, all the old railroad parts, and just the train itself working, still intact after 150 years plus. Not only do we have an appreciation for that, but now after going through that whole loop, we get a better appreciation for just how vital these railroads are in this part of the country, and how vital of a lifeline it was to the people in the past. Isn't this just a beautiful sight? Pretty representative of the Rocky Mountains area. As you'll see, it's going to be both with mountains and beautiful lakes and rivers. The land and water go hand in hand here in the West, especially here in Colorado. So just as the California gold rush waned in popularity as people realize, hey, there's not as much gold as we thought there'd be, hardly any of us are getting rich, the same thing generally happened with the silver boom in Colorado. They mined all the silver out that was easily accessible, and there's still silver here in the state, just not as much as there used to be, because everyone mined it all out. And so then less resources, less supply of silver caused people to give up on the silver dream. And people left this town in droves. And now today there's only a little more than 1,100 people who inhabit and live in Georgetown. But that's not to say we can't remember and appreciate the historical legacy that Georgetown has offered, not just Colorado, but the West as a whole. So how is that for our introduction, our debut into Colorado's Rocky Mountains? Well, not just Colorado's, but just the whole Rocky Mountains as a whole. I don't think we've really been in the heart of it. More videos will sure be in the Rocky Mountains here. I definitely wanted to start off here in Georgetown for a nice introduction. It really lends itself to be a good introduction. If you are going to the Rocky Mountains for the first time, I would say go to Georgetown first, because you're going to understand not just the natural beauty, not just the environment, but also the things that people did in the Rocky Mountains. And so here in Georgetown, you could definitely be acquainted with it very well. We're not done with Colorado just yet. We're going to be here for a couple more days, and then we're going to be heading up north ever more. But before I spoil too much about it, I'm just going to leave it off at that. Exciting times surely to come, still to come here on the Frontier Americana tour. Can you believe we're almost at 7 weeks? So as daylight begins to wane here at Georgetown Lake, at the edge, at the boundary of Georgetown, the town, kind of chilly from this high elevation that I'm not used to that much still, even after being here for quite some time in the West. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location.